Welcome to What's New in Electronics TV here at the NEC. We're going to have a live debate today about the smart factory, and I've got a great panel with me today, starting off with Matthias Wittmann from Tower Factory. We've got David Bennett from Mirtec and Harald Eppinger from Co-Young. The topic, as I said, is going to be the smart factory. So let's start off with that. What does smart factory actually mean? What's your definition of it, Matthias?
Thank you, first of all, to being here. And together with ISL, we are representing a storage solution system, which is just a step or a part of smart factory solution. Smart factory solution means to us keeping a pick and place line on a high utilization or highest possible utilization with as less employee as possible. That's the definition from our side for the smart factory.
Okay, so it's basically optimization. But there's also some connectivity that needs to occur between the machines in order to understand the smartness of the factory. David, if I can turn to you, do you agree with that definition, or is there more to it?
I actually had some experience more than 15 years ago with factory automation, where we were monitoring everything from materials to the complete manufacturing process. And it must be said there were some very impressive improvements. Typically, utilization on the lines was going up by in the region of 35%. But there were also a lot of drawbacks. Different companies trying to interact when you were doing this, when you had, for example, an AOI machine constantly changing the settings on a pick and place machine. The pick and place manufacturer got upset very quickly. I see this not going away. It happened with various manufacturers back in those days. We were working with the largest companies at that time in the industry. I think a lot of these things are going to be new for the customers who are looking at factory automation for the future. The problems that it will bring, do you, for example, have a black box, which means that every machine can talk to every machine? That's probably the best idea. The other solution you see, there's about 5 or 6 different versions in the market now where there are collaborations of different manufacturers. The problem there, of course, is the customer might not want certain products within that offering. So I think, as much as it sounds wonderful, there's an awful lot of hurdles to be jumped before we ever get this to a real conclusion.
Those hurdles, Harald, are we overcoming them?
I'm pretty sure, because when you review, and I not very often agree to Dave, but we did the smart factory means efficiency, means understanding of processes. And if you review the last 20, 30 years, it was done. People have been talking to each other. There was no smartphone necessary to talk to each other, sending SMS. It was just on a coffee break talking about, hey, happened to me, what did you do? Do you have any advice? We forgot to utilize these capabilities. Processes have been changed, processes have become more complex, components smaller, so humans have been more difficulty to understand and to acknowledge the changes. Smart factory means for me that we have to restart communication. It starts with humans. It's not just the machine, it starts with humans, but executing the experience of humans means that the machine can assist, and the transparency of the process and what's going on, and we are not talking about the defect, we are talking about the root cause of a defect. That has to be visualized to the people. And then the machine-to-machine communication is one level. And then the next is the process optimization. There is a change over the years. All manufacturers have been worried when there was an inspection system or any system behind to prove that the machine doesn't do the job. Meantime, it's clear all machines can do the job. It's maintenance issues, it's operators issue, but typically you buy a machine because it's performing. So it's not longer the question mark AOI is blaming the pick and place, SPI is blaming the printer. No, it's the mismatch of the process optimization of the parameters. And to get this under control and help people to understand what's going wrong, I think this is the way of smart factory, but it's based on communication. Doesn't matter if it's human or machine.
I was going to say, so communication is key here, clearly. With communication, you mentioned, David, collaboration. You've collaborated in sorts with Fuji, for example, on the line side, together with the storage solution that you have. And we're hearing more and more about collaboration in the industry. But we also heard from you there's some sort of resistance there. What's the balance, or what's the solution of overcoming that resistance and promoting partnerships like you have with Fuji, for example, and where are we taking this? Because ultimately to communicate amongst all machine vendors, where everybody needs to be in agreement with that. So how does that work?
I think, again, if we use this term black box, by using a black box solution, you're able to go to a customer and allow that customer to pick his preferred product line. I cannot see the day coming when you go to a customer and say, this is what you can have. I just don't believe that will happen. The customer will want his favorite screen printer, reflow oven, pick and place, AOI, SPI, everything else. He's going to want to be the person who decides on that. He's not going to want the vendors to tell him what he can have. So the black box solution, where you can plug any machine into any machine, and that's even when it's competitors, we must be able to communicate. If you're talking real 4.0, and that the sensible thing to do there is to use an integration company, not to come up and say, oh, I'm company X, and you can have these 10 products. That I cannot see a customer ever accepting that. They will want to say, I want this, 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 and this, and I want it all to talk. And that could work. And I also think Harald was right what he was saying about the communication. When I first got into AOI, which was longer ago than I'd like to remember, the thing that we were very much looked at is being almost like a policeman. Good board, bad board, good board, bad board. Those days have changed. We no longer are there to catch the faults that are manufactured in our industry. We're now part of the process of making sure they don't make those faults. It's so feedback, education, real time, and this industry's used a term called process control for a long time, statistical process control, where they will examine what went wrong a week after the event. They might not build that board for 3 more months. I'm very skeptical about how much they're going to take forward the next time they build that board from the last time they did that board. I think what's required in the modern world of our industry is dynamic process control, where you do it now. You spot trends and you fix trends now. Not have a meeting in a week's time and everybody blame everybody. So things are definitely going to have to change.
That's where the word smart comes in, I guess. It's all about intelligence. It's about recognizing and learning from situations that have occurred. And I guess, again, from a storage solution that you have to talking to the pick and place machine and understanding what the requirements there are, that's where the smartness comes in.
I would say that's where the smartness begins, because we are on the beginning of the process. We are delivering the material to the pick and place line, either to the kitting area or directly to the line. And if this point is already the bottleneck, then the operator already gets attracted by issues which shouldn't be there. So then it adds on another issue on the pick and place line where it cannot focus on. So this is handling the beginning of the production is one of the key issues, I would say. And the other thing is handling this big data. There's so many information, as you mentioned before, people talking to each other. Sometimes they exchanging useful information. Sometimes they're just talking. And the point is, if you have all this big data, you have to be able to pick out the important information to keep the to keep your focus on the possible issues and to avoid it in advance.
I like that. People sometimes talk and sometimes there's useful information, but sometimes they just talk. So now we're talking language. We're talking understanding of language. Everybody, obviously, we know talks different languages with different accents. In a smart factory, there's the big data language that you've touched on. So are we going towards standardization? Do we need standardization? What sort of language is it that we need that can interpret the buyer's choice of whatever machine he wants, that it's a sort of plug and play regardless of what equipment he has? How do we communicate depending on what machines they have?
I think we are in an early stage to start a new communication level, because the willingness on one hand from the different vendors, from producers and our inspection machine or storage equipment, ICT, X-ray, everything is implemented. We cannot just go for the pure SMT process. It ends up in the final inspection of assembled boards. We had already this layer implemented, because when traceability starts, it was the first tracing system. And a lot of companies utilized, beside the ERP system, meantime an MES system, which is executing the manufacturing process, and we know exactly what's going on. We started already to communicate from our side into this world to deliver the results and throughput, all these kind of indications. This platform, meantime, was accepted as kind of leading role. There's a few vendors leading this market, but they're communicating. But they never have been able to add these 1,000 amounts of measurement data, so they cannot, it's collapsing. So we have to implement, and I'm pretty sure the black box could be from different vendors. They will take over the layer from the measurement result, and I fully agree, it's dynamic, it's even worse, it's real time. You have to get the visualization in milliseconds during the process. That's new, and that's only possible since a few years, when the CPU capacity, data storage, hard drive capability is given. And I'm also a young guy like him. We experience AOI since a few years. I promise always, either you have no hair or gray hair when you are in this business. So I remember computers which have 640 kilobyte RAM and it works. Today we are easy handling gigabytes in seconds. This enables, but I think the big data is in everybody's mind, but nobody understands that cannot be executed by humans. I'm pretty sure, and luckily we started the process already a year ago with artificial intelligent engines, because it's not longer just a component or different vendor or how it's stored. It's the community combined with the temperature, combined with the operator, and this complexity to analyze the root cause of a deviation. I'm not talking about a defect. Defect catch is still the goal, but to understand what has changed is important to start the preventive maintenance, preventive production control. And this, we are in early stage, and the experience we have to utilize into this kind of engines. Combined, human and machine will be the future. And I think that's the way.
So do we need to change our productions, or do we need to change the people we employ in order to understand and interpret the amount of data that's being generated? What are the hurdles at the moment for I suppose faster development towards the ultimate smart factory?
I believe the ultimate smart factory is where the machines would do all of the work and the humans would feed them. That was something that was being looked at by companies like Siemens many years ago. They used to call it the lights out factory. The idea that having just a few operators who were being told by software ahead of the game, go and reload these reels, go and get more soda paste, go and get this, go and get that, so that they were getting actions ahead of the time, rather than running around with lots of operators every time an alarm bell goes off or something starts to run out, and then it's all a mad rush to get the next amount of components and everything. This was the big thing that I saw 15, 20 years ago when I was selling it. When you gave the information to the operators, they were able very quickly to get the line utilization to go up dramatically. And you certainly didn't need a lot of them. You know, our industry has almost kneecapped itself by throwing years and years of really good skills, very good engineers. We threw all of that away pre-2000, and it all went off to the other side of the world. And we're now in the stage where people look to the West at manufacturing and say, well, that's where the quality is. Maybe, but certainly the quantity is still in the low-cost areas. We have a dilemma. You know, if you're talking about intelligent factories, why do they need to be in the low-cost areas? Because it's not a people thing anymore. It's an intelligence thing, and software and good equipment can be anywhere in the world. And what would make sense, it's where the customer base is. So to have to ship it from the other side of the world, because the labor's cheap, if you can take labor out of that equation, then the whole dynamic of our industry could change.
Interesting point about geographies and where the smart factory should be placed or shouldn't be placed, and I'll wrap up with that. So final words on, do you think there are differences in different regions of the world, from high end or high manufacturing to lower manufacturing? Is there a difference in smartness for those requirements?
Not a different in smartness. The smart factory is always the same. The requirements are probably different in a low-cost labor country as is maybe here in the UK or in my home country in Germany. We have to understand the customer's need, and we have to pick this part from this part of the smart factory for a particular customer. I don't think today most customers are ready for a complete smart factory. They just need parts out of it. In our case, it's the logistic part. We're still seeing many customers, they are running on a very low utilization, or they could run on a higher utilization by using an automated warehouse system. And I believe it's the same in the pick and place line. They could have a higher utilization or higher quality by using certain systems. And that's my understanding from Smart Factory, offering one step from the Smart Factory or a few steps from the Smart Factory for the right customer.
Gentlemen, it was great talking to you. Thank you very much for participating, and good luck with the rest of the show. Thank you.
Thank you very much.